Good to go. Hello and welcome to the Floating Memory Podcast. We are your hosts, Kinship
and BlankGinger.
And today we're going to talk about some cards that are not really seeing a lot of play, but with a little bit of help, might get a bit better in the future. What kind of elements are we looking at today?
Well, this episode we're going to be going over all the advanced elements, which includes Arcane, Crux, Tera, and Luxem.
So what do we got today?
Well, our first card is going to be Rye Mana Weaver. He's level 3 Rye lineage, 25 health, Arcane, and he has the ability of tap, remove 4 Enlighten counters from Rye, copy target mage spell card activation. You may choose new targets for the copy.
All right, so we're seeing a lot of the other Rye for leveling. Why are we not seeing the copy Rye? Surely you want to throw out a couple of fireballs, right?
Well, right now, Rye is seeing a lot more of the go through your entire deck, get your entire hand into your entire card, all of the cards you need into your hand, and just spell sling all of them at once, so more combo style. This Mana Weaver, he can copy 1 spell activation, so that's better for more of a grindier game where you're trying to go from turn to turn. And I could see that coming into play a little bit later with the help of some more controlling water strategies, possibly, whenever you're wanting to copy a bunch of card draw, like Arcane Disposition, and you're wanting to draw 6, and then maybe you'll have to discard your hand at the end of the turn, or put it all into memory before then, or something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, so as of a week ago, I was playing some Wind Rye, having a great time, getting to turn 3 and 4, just absolutely one-shotting people. It was a Wonderland, and as of this morning, Lime beat me in, I think, under 5 minutes with a couple of squirrels. So we're seeing a couple more allies than we used to back when Lorraine was one-shotting everything. And now that she's not necessarily falling out of favor, but now that people are experimenting outside of Lorraine, it might be a bit more impactful to start having those grindier games again and being able to control. And I think Rye Mana Weaver has a place in the meta for that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's our next card?
So our next card is going to be Arcanist Prism. That is a 1-cost Regalia that says at the beginning of your recollection phase, put all cards from your memory on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw that many cards. So this has always been kind of interesting as a way to get rid of your dead hands and then maybe get your Arcane Blasts back in. But we haven't been seeing a ton of it. So why is that?
Well, like we said earlier, I think the game's a little too fast right now for this style of card. Whenever you're trying to get rid of your recollection during your recollection phase, get rid of all your cards. The idea behind that is to hopefully play out a bunch of spells, recollect your memory back into your hand, and then go again all in one turn. But you don't want to really take off that one turn to even put this card out from your material deck, just because every turn is very crucial in that Rye strategy as of right now. What do you think can make this better, though, in the future?
So a couple of things. Like we mentioned before, Rye Mana Weaver is potentially a card that could be getting some play. I could see it in some water decks coming up. That's kind of my thought on it. And with Arcanist Prism, whenever you have Rye, if you're playing something like the card, is it Disposition that draws the 3?
Arcane Disposition.
Yeah, Arcane Disposition to draw 3, copying that, getting a whole bunch of cards in your memory that you might necessarily not need, but you do want the hand size. Arcanist Prism can help you out with that, so you can just get rid of all and then hopefully draw into a blast or 2. And then on top of that, there is a card coming up in Fractured Crown that is Dawn of Ashes that I'm very interested in, that will actually make you check your memory at the time of recollection to see if you have norm cards or other cards. This is a way to completely clear out your memory so that you never run the risk of getting rid of that. So just some tech on there.
Right, that's a new domain that has a different type of upkeep effect instead of the normal can't cast or can't materialize.
And that's another control piece as well. So maybe we'll see some Norm Rye.
Right. Alpha Male.
Alpha Male Rye coming up.
Exactly.
Shout out to Max.
All right. So our next card, we're going on to Conduit of the Mad Mage. Currently, this is a 1 reserve cost, 0/2 Mage Human. And whenever you activate a mage spell action, wake up Conduit of the Mad Mage, and it gets +1 attack until end of turn. At the beginning of your end phase, sacrifice Conduit of the Mad Mage, but it also has Floating Memory.
Ooh.
Yep. This is an interesting card. It's trying to do a lot of things. but it doesn't seem overly powerful as of right now. Why is that?
So, like I said, just first thing, there's not a lot of allies going around, and just especially not in Rye. So, I'm just at that point kind of a little off on the playing. The second thing is it starts out as a 0-2. So you cannot even swing on this without another card interaction. And then 3, in Rye, you're not really playing a lot of low-costed spells when you get up to level 3. You kind of just want to have the game and lock down and one-shot someone. So getting a conduit that will maybe put out 1 to 3 damage in a turn is not as impactful as, say, throwing down an Arcane Elemental and hitting for 7.
Right.
So how do you think this card could see more play?
Well, I feel like this is a theme with Arcane is what if there's a slower controlling strategy with Arcane, maybe water, to where you are playing a lot of cheaper spells like Glacial Guidance or something like that, where you're just trying to throw out small one cost spells. Keep doing that. Wake up your conduit, hit for 1, hit for 2, hit for 3, keep going, and then you can just maybe recollect your entire memory. Play a bunch of small, cheaper spells, and it's not really necessarily a combo turn. You're not trying to OTK them, but you are trying to control the board, swing with a bunch with your conduit, and then go to your next phase, maybe play out another conduit or whatever.
Yeah, and that being said as well, water interacts a lot with resting units, so if your opponents do not have anything that they can retaliate with, conduit can get in pretty easily.
Right, you could always, Frozen Nova the turn before and then come to your next turn.
Bring that Frozen Nova back.
Right, exactly.
It'll be playable, we swear it.
All right, so what are we moving on to next?
Okay, I think, do you want to go ahead and cover the Crux?
Let's go with Crux, I guess.
Awesome.
So our first Crux card is Spirit Blade Ghost Strike. It is a Warrior Sword attack, and it is 1 attack. On attack, you may banish a card from your material deck. If you do, your champion's attack get +1 until end of turn. This is one of the few Crux cards that are currently not seeing play. I feel like almost all of them are seeing play except for the 3 that we've chosen today.
Yeah.
So we want to shed some light onto maybe some other Crux cards that can maybe see play depending on how the decks form.
Yeah. I will say we're putting in the overtime here to try and get you some Crux cards because Crux has been pretty well researched, I would say.
Right, except for Ghost Strike. So Ghost Strike, here's the thing with Ghost Strike. It is a 0 reserve cost, which means it is a free attack. That seems a little strong right off the bat.
Yeah, any attack's good. And
then you can always have the option of banishing a card from your material deck to up your champion's attacks +1. That is for the whole turn, and it's every attack. So if you were to wake it up with like a Spirit's Blessing or something like that, you can always attack for an additional +1 every single time you attack.
Yep.
Where I see this card getting better, though, is the banish a card from your material deck. It doesn't have to be specifically a sword, or it doesn't have to be something Crux or anything like that.
Yeah, it can be any element.
Any element. It could be any type. It could be a mage book. It could be a Tera, a Guy's Blessing, or something like that. And I could see that coming into play later on whenever we get more interaction with our banishment. So bringing things back from banishment into the field. Because currently, especially in Crux, all we have is Spirit Blade Insul, Intangible Geist, and Spirit Blade Ascension. But all of those are more about material deck and banishment.
Yeah, and they're also like a lower cost.
Right.
Whereas this doesn't necessarily have any limitation attached to it. I feel like we could see a card that says, just go get something from your banishment.
Right. It could be really, really good if you just go banish one of my big swords.
Sealed Blade
or something. Get that back from banishment, have it enter, now you're having a Sealed Blade for free, essentially.
Yep.
That could be really strong.
No, that's the use case for me is I'm sure at some point down the line, you're going to see a material that either gets direct benefit from being in the banishment zone or has some just crazy condition to put it out normally that you will want to get it back by circumventing that, just throwing it into banishment to begin with, like Sealed Blade, that would only use floating memory otherwise.
Right. So our next card, speaking of banishment, what do we got?
We got Intangible Geist. So this is a Crux Warrior Spirit ally for 4 cost that says, on enter, you may choose any amount of Regalia cards from your banishment and put them into your material deck with a class bonus of prevent all attack damage that would be dealt to Intangible Geist. And it is a 3/2.
All right. Why Intangible Geist not seeing as much play? I mean, you see it as like a one of every now and then, maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to go out and say the 4 cost is pretty rough, and then the effect is good for the on-enter of getting Regalia back from the banishment in some scenarios, but this is really, to me, would be played for its class bonus of it can't die in the moment,
Right.
and like I said, allies are just not happening a lot.
I mean, the other thing is its counterpart in Crux is Ghost of Pendragon, and that's a very strong card. So it's
I don't think we need to convince anyone about Ghost of Pendragon.
I mean, it's kind of competing for that slot in the deck. We could obviously see maybe if we're burning through material deck a lot faster and we need to refill it with Intangible Geist, or if it's a longer, grindier game, that you could play it alongside with Ghost of Pendragon, return a material, draw 2, 3 turns later, you've used that Regalia, get it back, and then kind of repeat the cycle if it's a longer, grindier game like that.
Yeah, so something I wanted to bring up is we've now seen the influence mechanic where the number of cards in hand and on the field for material.
Memory.
Yeah, memory. Yeah, not material. That is important, and often the person who's lower is getting rewarded for that.
We could probably see something that could affect the material deck and or banishment in the same way as influence does to hand and memory.
And so between Ghost Strike and Intangible, being able to manipulate the number of things you have in your material deck could be influential.
It's possible.
So just keep that in mind.
So next card, finally with Crux, we got Spirit Blade Dispersion. This is 0 reserve cost fast warrior spell. Remove all durability counters from any amount of sword weapons you control, then banish them. Choose any amount of units and deal damage equal to the amount of durability counters removed this way, split among them. So this card's not seeing as much play right now because it's kind of a little over the top, and it kind of doesn't really need to be in soul decks. That's the best case scenario we can see with currently, is you Spirit Blade in soul, get all your swords, attack with everything. You've probably already killed them at that point.
Yeah, and I would say between allies being able to buff swords like Banner Knight, typically swinging with the swords is just the better option than strictly removing counters as well. But I did want to talk about, there is a word on that card that says choose.
Right. It is a choose any amount of units and deal damage to them. So that gets around Spell Shroud again.
Yep. So that is not a target. So if something were to come up like Bespawn Boots that says, hey, you have Spell Shroud on your champion, this is just going to hit because it is not targeting the champ.
As a choose, which is really nice. This could also, since it is Warrior Spell, we can start seeing some more strategies with Merlin, Kingslayer, possibly with some spell slinging for Merlin. You could have some swords out that you aren't really swinging with all that much because Merlin isn't about the whole.
Yeah, and since Merlin has lineage off of the level 2 Merlin, you could go level 1 Lorraine, Merlin, and you would have a sword on the field guaranteed.
At least one, hopefully.
Yep.
All right, what's our next?
All right, so next we're going to be moving to Tera. And I'm going to start this off with Sylvie Earth's Tune. So the other Sylvie giving intercept, giving the extra health, really great to stop pretty much anything coming your way. Sylvie Earth's Tune, a little bit different. So what it does is on reveal, you will look at cards from the top of your deck until you get a Tera element, animal, or beast ally. That will go into your hand, and the rest will go on the bottom of the deck in any random order. So currently, Sylvie's target for this is kind of just Virtus.
Right. I mean,
that's about what I'm saying.
You have a Rima, possibly.
Yeah, I've seen a Rima a couple times.
Or a Grey Wolf, if you really need a Grey Wolf.
Well, so that's Tera. So
Tera?
You can grab that.
Sorry.
Even
also,
better.
You also have Gaia Songbird. Yeah, so you can get Gaia Songbird, so you can then go get your Grey Wolf.
Yeah, so currently, I would say Sylvie Earth's Tune is lacking a target that it really wants to grab. Virtus is not bad, but next set, Crawl exists. Definitely want to be grabbing Crawl.
Yes, having extra, this is essentially an extra copy of Crawl. As soon as you hit 3, it's guaranteed going to get 1 Crawl to your hand, which is very strong. To guarantee have that, here's my big threat, what are you going to do about it kind of aspect. And I think we could start seeing this one a little bit more come Fracture Crown, because the current Sylvie loved by all, is seeing a lot more play because the whole defense strategy of keeping all of your animals and beasts up to defend your champion is kind of the current animal strategy, but
Yeah.
we'll see that pivot a little bit more whenever you can get a big giant threat out onto the field and just...
Yeah, and you mentioned Fractured Crown. I know there's going to be a de-leveling card in Fractured Crown. So potentially, if your crawl were to die, you could always have the option of de-leveling and then re-leveling to search that out as well. So that's just another way to get that.
All right, so our next card that we got is Call the Pack.
Yeah, this is kind of like a two-parter. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it is a 4 reserve cost, slow tamer skill. However, has class bonus of this card costs 2 less to activate. And then for each animal ally you control, you may put a beast ally card from your hand onto the field. Why is that important? Why is put those beast allies on the field?
So in the current game, putting beasts down, could be impactful. You might get, like an ape out, which could be good. You might get some wolves. It is just a value card. Going forward, I think this will get more and more impactful with time, because the way the card reads is that you can put a beast ally down for each animal you have. That does not say activate, which means you don't have to obey the element restriction.
Right. You can just, if you're playing water, you have a couple animals out.
Yep.
And then you just go,
surprise,
call the pack,
apes.
Here's some apes.
Yep.
And that's kind of being a little experimented with right now, but
surprise, crawl.
Right. Once we hit Fractured Crown, we have a big threats that we can drop on the field.
Yep. And I didn't include it here because I do have another card I want to talk about today, but Gaia's works much the same way. You can just get something down as long as you have the level.
That one's actually at fast speed too, so that can be a surprise.
But on your opponent's turn.
Exactly. Now you're attacking this thing. That would be a little...
Yep. So just going forward, anytime some cool beasts come out and maybe they're not in your element, you can fix that.
Still consider playing it. Our next card is
Meadow Bloom. Yep. So Meadow Bloom Dryad, 2 cost, has preserve. So if it were to die, you can put it into the material deck preserved instead of giving it to the discard. And then for class bonus, whenever it or another ally enters the field under your control, you put a buff counter on target ally, and it is a 1/3. So this is pretty interesting. We're not seeing just a ton of buff counters currently, not a lot of creatures that do that, and this one is repeatable. So why are we not seeing this played more?
Well, it's locked behind Tera, which means you have to be level 3 Sylvie in order to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, you've either lost the game or you don't have any more allies left because they've all been killed by Lorraine.
Yep.
So how can we...
That's fair.
How can we see Meadow Bloom Dryad see some play in the future?
So Meadow Bloom Dryad's really interesting in that specifically Wind looks like it's getting just a lot of suppression support going on. I know we talked last time about Camelot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it has the preserve interaction that does not disrupt it. Being able to have Meadow Bloom Dryad or other creatures leave and enter will trigger that. And then especially, I believe Green Slime has been spoiled now.
Yep. And
has the ability to come in with 2 buff counters and then distribute its buff counters whenever it leaves. So bouncing that back and forth with suppression, especially off of the new staff that we've seen.
Yep.
And then, like I said, Camelot means that you could just be getting a lot of counters on something and making it a big threat.
And then spreading those around with, like the song that you said. Yeah. That's hopefully something that we'll see in the future, I think.
Not. I don't want to play against that.
Hey, you never know.
But, Sylvie players, throw them a bone.
I mean, also, if there's ever something that is Tera that isn't Sylvie specifically, if you have, some other type of champion that it can enable some type of counter strategy that's a lot stronger, that's always a possibility. But
yeah. All
right, so next we have Luxem. This is our final category that we're going to talk about, and our first card is Xander Korhazi's Chosen. He's the level 3 assassin human champion. Comes from Xander lineage, so have to level up from Xander. He has 25 health, and on enter, Xander gains Stealth and Spell Shroud until the beginning of your next turn. Put a preparation counter on Xander. Why is this card not seeing play?
So I think the biggest problem with this card is, while that effect is awesome, and being able to pretty safely say, I won't lose this turn is a great effect. It is only for one turn. There are still things that get around it. Right. And then also, kind of more importantly, the allies and cards for Luxem right now do not fit in with this champion.
Right.
He doesn't support the things that come in the deck as much as the other Xander does.
Xander Buying Steel is just obviously the better choice between the two as of right now, just with the whole Luxem package of reveal every single turn, get some incremental value. That just kind of seems like the only option for deck building with Xander as of right now. We can certainly see him coming into more play if a couple more things happen. Like, obviously, if there's a better preparation strategy where you're getting a lot of preparation counters, he gets one immediately. So that's two.
And that could make the difference.
Right. That's two immediately just from the Xander lineage. You get one at level 1, you get one at level 3. So that could help out a little bit. And then on top of that, if there was a way to repeatably get his on-enter effect, then maybe this could be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because right now the big drawback to this is you only get this for one turn. But however, if there was a Luxem card that came out that said, hey, your champion gets its on-enter effect again, you could now repeatably get the, hey, I'm not touchable for 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, something like that. That could be really, really strong.
Yeah, and I will say, if there were ever an ally that came in and said, perhaps choose keywords from other units in the centers, having stealth and spell shred on a unit is pretty good, especially considering there's cards like the poison coating oil that give extra damage to things that have the stealth.
Yep,
I could see an avenue for that as well,
and that could definitely see some play. What is our next card in Luxem though?
Well, looks like we got Trisket, Guidance Angel.
So Trisket is a 5 reserve cost Luxem unique ally warrior angel. Fire, water, and wind elements are enabled for you. On enter, you may banish your champion. If you do, Trisket becomes a unique champion with base level 3.
Okay. What's the stat line on that?
A 2 attack, 12 health?
12
health. Okay.
Interesting. So all that sounds awesome. You have all the elements, can replace your champ, has 12 health. Why are we not seeing this played?
Well, I guess because it's a very high cost for something that is not as great as your champion. Yeah, she has an innate attack value, but we were just talking about how the whole revealing your entire Luxem package every single turn is kind of the stronger strategy. So what could make this card better? Because I don't see Trisket really seeing play.
So on the champion side, not a ton to touch on there. I believe the idea right now is that you do have the Xander Karazi's Chosen that we mentioned, put it out, make sure you don't die, and then potentially you could go into Trisket just as a way to save yourself because she is going to have that 12 health. So if you were lower, you would be going up to that. She will replace your champion. She also has the elements enabled. I know I saw at least one person in one of the tournaments previous playing a version of Lorraine that played all 3 elements to Prismatic Edge.
Yep.
So there could be a strategy like that in the future. But the most interesting part of this to me is actually the 12 health that we have. So as far as allies go, 12 health is nuts. And now that we know Phantasias are going to be a thing, if we have anything that can give intercept, then you have the beefiest wall you've ever seen as an option. And then additionally, I believe we already have a Tamer card.
We have a Tamer card called Miss Resonance, which says give +1 health to all your allies. But if you have Tamer bonus, all of your allies deal damage as though it was their health stat instead of their power stat.
Yeah, so unfortunately we can't play that because it is Tamer specific, but I would not be surprised at all if there were more cards in the future that revolve around getting some value from health, and 12 health is just an absolute ton. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Right, especially if there was like a Fantasia that said, hey, attack with your health instead. That would be play Trisket.
I'm all over that if that comes
play
out.
Play Trisket. Here's a Fantasia. Now I'm just going to hit you for 13, 14.
Yep.
Man, that would be crazy. All right, so what is our final card?
So our last card here is Korhazi Lightblade. It is a 2-cost ally assassin human that has a class bonus of on attack, reveal a card from your memory at random. And then if you reveal a Luxem card, then Korhazi Lightblade will gain critical 1 until end of turn, which is, of course, if you attack, you get to double that damage unless your opponent discards a card, and it is a 2/2.
Okay. So, again, the whole thing that we've been saying with Luxem is currently the main strategy with Luxem is the reveal package.
Yeah.
This kind of has an effect of reveal something. You could put down 2 cards to play it and then reveal one of them, hope it's your better Lightweaver's Assault, whatever. But I see this card coming into a little bit more play on the other flip side with Xander Korai's Chosen, something like that, where you're trying to play more on board with stealth, with these allies that can benefit from your champion. And you can maybe, even with Fantasias that we were talking about before, buff it up, and then now you have a 3-4 power attack that you're now swinging, trying to double, which would be really, really strong.
Yeah, I think Fantasias could offer a lot to this card. For one, having the stealth, just being able to keep it on the board would be great. But 2, that critical 1, as long as you get it off, is going to double whatever damage you do. So if there is a way to buff Kurhazi Lightblade, I know I've been seeing more buff strategies recently. Arthur is seeing play, which is crazy to me. Then this could hit for a lot more. So
I mean, there's one crazy way you can do it now, and that's if you do have Blinding Steel as your champion, you hopefully reveal enough Luxem cards to where they put their entire hand into their memory, so they don't have any cards to discard. And then you buff it up with, like you said, Arthur. But there's also, if you had the time to prepare it, you have Poison Coat Oil.
Yeah, Poison Coated Oil.
If you combo that with Smoke Bombs, give it stealth. Give it Poison Coat Oil. I mean,
who knows what you could do with that?
Yeah, there's some deck building around there. It's a possibility, but I think whenever we get Fantasias, it would be a little bit stronger.
Yeah, all I'm seeing is Luxem is just, we're looking real hopeful in the future.
Right,
that's
I
all
agree,
I'm saying.
Especially with a lot of the cards coming out in Fractured Ground. So, well, I guess that's about to do it for us.
Yeah, that's all we have for today. So thanks for watching the second episode. Hopefully we can see you guys for some more probably base element cards again out of the first set.
If you have any questions or comments, leave it down in the comment section below and let us know how you think.
See ya.